So, after Sonic Pocket Adventure, some of the members of SNK left the company in order to form their own studio called DIMPS. And I guess that Sega/Sonic team were so impressed with this group's work on Sonic Pocket Adventure that they decided to hire DIMPS to make more 2D Sonic games for them on handheld systems. And so that is how we get the Sonic Advance games on the Game Boy Advance. However, one thing I would like to clarify for people is a lot of people often say that the Sonic Advance games and the handheld games of this time were made by DIMPS, and that is not 100% correct. People will say that these are the DIMPS Sonic games, and when DIMPS makes a Sonic game, they do this and that. But these games were not solely made by DIMPS. These games are collaborations between DIMPS and Sonic Team. If you look at the credits of the game, there are many members of Sonic Team who worked on it. Designers, programmers, Yuji Uekawa was in charge of the art, and the director of the game, Akinori Nishiyama, was a member of Sonic Team. He was the writer of Sonic Adventure 1, and he would eventually go on to become the head of Sonic Team for a brief period of time. Yes, DIMPS did do the majority of the work on this game, but it is not really accurate to say that these are DIMPS games. These games were definitely worked on quite a bit by Sonic Team. But enough of that, onto the actual game itself, and what we have here is very similar to Sonic Pocket Adventure. It's just a Sonic game. Similar to Pocket Adventure, it has very good physics, very similar to the original Sonic games, even better than Pocket Adventure had, though again, not exactly one-to-one with the original Genesis games, but very, very similar, and pretty much everything that you could do in the classic games works just as well here in Sonic Advance. But, interestingly, Sonic Advance does something very bold and unexpected for a classic-style Sonic game, which is that it dares to add a second button to the gameplay. Oh my god! Can you believe it? We have finally graduated from being a one-button game, because now in Sonic Advance, along with the jump button, you have the attack button, and this basically just lets your character do a standing kind of melee attack move. And on the surface, this seems like a very unnecessary thing to add to the game because you really don't need it at all. However, that does not mean that these new moves are useless. They actually have quite a bit of functionality, not in how they're used to attack things, but in how they influence your character's movement. Because an interesting property of these melee attacks is they make your character come to a dead stop immediately, and this has a lot of practical applications for interesting things. For example, if you want to spin dash, you have to come to a stop in order to do it. Normally in Sonic, in order to stop, you have to pull back in the direction you're currently moving to get your character to eventually slow to a stop. However, this sometimes has an awkward problem where if you hold it for too long, your character will start facing the other direction, and if you're not conscious of that, then you might end up accidentally spin dashing off into the opposite direction. It happens all the time, even to someone as experienced with Sonic as me. However, if you want to come to a complete stop in Sonic Advance, all you have to do is use your character's melee attack, and you can do it just like that. And so yeah, this functions really well as like an instant break action that you can do to bring yourself to a stop anytime you want to spin dash, or if you just want to come to a stop for whatever reason. Now, on paper, this might seem like kind of a bad thing to implement into Sonic gameplay because it opposes the traditional momentum and physics-based design of Sonic. However, if you recall from my video on Sonic 3 and Knuckles, I talked about how Knuckles did the very same thing with his gliding, and I thought that actually added something very interesting to his gameplay. By adding non-momentum-based movement options for the characters, it adds more variety in the way you can move around, and thus giving you more options and more things to think about in terms of how you want to move your character. I actually think this adds something really good to Sonic's gameplay to add something that opposes momentum and allows you to instantly stop. And what's nice about this is while these attack animations can be used as immediate breaks, they still also do kind of fit into the traditional Sonic game design of more skillful things being faster, because while you can use these animations to immediately stop, they also do take time for the animations to complete, and depending on how fast you're going, it might be faster to just slow down and stop manually, and so it gives you an option of how quickly versus how easily do you want it to be to come to a stop. You can do it the easy way that will immediately get you to come to a full stop, or you can do it the more manual and skillful way that will get you to stop quicker. This, I think, fits in just fine with traditional Sonic game design and adds more to the gameplay than it takes away, because there are also other things this attack enables you to do. For example, anytime a spring is used to launch your character in the opposite direction that they're currently going. This is a classic design element in Sonic that has been used since the very first game, but it's always had one small issue that can crop up when you're trying to use these things intentionally, particularly when you're trying to move at low speeds. The issue is that you're moving in one direction and then the spring is suddenly sending you in the other direction, but unless you properly time when you switch what direction you're moving in, you're going to end up pulling against the current direction that your speed is going, and thus you're going to accidentally slow yourself down. This can be avoided at higher speeds pretty easily by just going neutral and letting the momentum carry you, but at lower speeds you have to walk into that spring, and so unless you time it very well, you're usually going to end up losing speed from that spring. However, because these attack animations often launch your character forward a little bit, you can use these to go into the spring without having to move into them, and so you can already be pushing in the direction the spring is going to launch you without losing any of your speed. Another problem that gets smoothed over by this attack animations is the biggest thing that I like about these attack moves and what they add to the game, which is anytime you're trying to go up a slope and you don't have enough speed to clear it in Sonic, and so you would often have to use movement to very precisely counteract the slope's downward momentum in order to get your character to come to a stop to do a spin dash, and it could oftentimes just be very awkward and a really big pace breaker, and in some instances, not even really possible, forcing you to go all the way to the bottom of the slope back to flat ground so you can do a spin dash. This problem is completely alleviated with these attack animations because they completely cancel out all of your horizontal momentum, and so if you're on this slope and you're in that awkward situation where you're slightly walking backwards, just do your attack and you'll come to a stop and you can spin dash up the slope no problem. This does the same thing that one of the functions of the spin dash was intended to do in Sonic 2 when it was created, which is to smooth over occasional hiccups that you have in the gameplay due to the nature of Sonic physics. So while these attack moves are pretty useless as attacks, I think they add a lot of really positive stuff to the gameplay of Sonic, and I think they were fantastic additions. However, one byproduct of the fact that we now have an attack button here is that Sonic Advance only has a single jump button as opposed to 3 like the previous Sonic games did, and that does have an impact on how spin dashing works because in the original Sonic games, it would take 6 revs to get a spin dash up to maximum speed, but with 3 buttons you can press all of them twice and get a maximum speed spin dash in what is essentially just 2 button presses. However, now, with only a single jump button, you would have to press that button 6 times, making it take much longer for a spin dash to be fully charged. However, the developers of this game realize this and actually address this problem because they have reduced the number of revs it takes to get a spin dash to full speed to just 2 presses. And so, you can rev a spin dash just as quickly in Sonic Advance as you can in the classic games. That is an attention to detail that I can really appreciate, and it really shows that the developers of this game understood classic Sonic and knew what they were doing. Though it's not all perfect in how it was previously. For example, the Insta-Shield in this game no longer grants Sonic invincibility, which is unfortunate because that was the most fun attribute of the Insta-Shield previously, and it's just gone now, so that kinda sucks. Thankfully, the Insta-Shield, though, does still allow you to disable the roll lock when playing as Sonic, which is a function that it had in Sonic 3 and Knuckles, so they kept that at least, that's good. Though, personally, I would have preferred if they just didn't have the roll lock here at all, but whatever. Another thing they've added new to this game, specifically for Sonic, is that he can grind on rails, just like he can in the adventure games. Though it's not a super prevalent mechanic in the game, they use it very rarely, and it's very awkward to use. Getting on a rail and making sure the collision actually detects that you're above it so you actually go on it is very inconsistent, so it ends up being a pretty awkward and very negligible addition to the gameplay. Another ability they've added for Sonic is the ability to do an Airdash, also similar to the adventure games, though it is very different than how it works in those games. Firstly, there's no homing attack here, it's just the Airdash, but also, in the 3D Sonic games, the Airdash always sends Sonic at a specific speed. However, in Sonic Advance, the Airdash increases your speed no matter how quickly you're currently going. Now, theoretically, this could allow you to accelerate indefinitely, and that could be very game-breaking, thing, but in practice that actually isn't really what ends up happening, because most of the time the Airdash's speed increase ends up getting cancelled out by air drag slowing you down. And so actually I find that in most circumstances the Airdash isn't really that useful. However, if you want to get a bit more advanced and a bit more fancy, you can use the Airdash to accelerate incredibly quickly in Sonic Advance, because all you have to do is minimize the amount of time you're in the air when you do the Airdash, which you can fortunately do because you can do the Airdash essentially the very frame you jump into the air. This, however, is very difficult to do because to do the Airdash, you have to double tap your movement in the direction you want Sonic to Airdash in, and because air drag is so aggressive in how much it slows you down, you want to be doing this Airdash as close to the ground as physically possible, and so without a lot of practice, it's very difficult to do the Airdash close to the ground in such a way that it's actually going to speed you up a notable amount. I personally can only really manage to make use of the Airdash after a spin dash, because while you're moving, you have an additional movement that you need to do of going back to neutral and then doing the double tap to get yourself to do the Airdash, whereas while spin dashing, I can more easily buffer the input in order to make it happen. This is still pretty difficult to do and requires quite a lot of precision and speed in order to get this input down, but thankfully as a fighting game player I have a lot of experience doing these kinds of movement and button style input sequences. This whole Airdash thing is quite a crazy thing that they chose to implement into Sonic, quite frankly. I don't even know why this is here. Like, this is a mechanic that 99% of the people that have played this game, I'm gonna guess, have never really used very much at all. But I am very glad it's here because it really increases the skill ceiling of what you can do in a Sonic game. If you watch speedrunners play through this game as Sonic, holy shit, they can really take advantage of what the Airdash can do, and they fly through this game in such an impressive way. It is very, very cool. And it's something pretty unique as far as classic Sonic games go to Sonic Advance. When you look at the difference between an advanced player like me and a speedrunner, there's not really that much difference in how we play outside of glitches beyond the fact that they have more practice and more knowledge about the game. But if you compare how I play Sonic Advance versus a speedrunner, we are in completely different universes of how we approach this game, and I think that's very cool. Considering Sonic is all about trying to get better at it and get faster, the fact that this game has such a higher skill ceiling than any of the previous 2D Sonic games, I think is a great thing. As far as Tails and Knuckles, they work exactly how you would expect them to in this game, but newly added to the 2D Sonic games is Amy has been turned into a playable character, and her moveset is very inspired by how she plays in Sonic Adventure. She's slower than the other characters, she can't roll into a ball, and she can't do a spin dash. Her lack of speed also makes it so she just cannot get to some parts of the level, forcing her onto slower paths sometimes. And so Amy offers a very unique and very different playthrough compared to all the other characters. What stops Amy from being a less fun version of the game where you just have a weaker character is the fact that Amy actually has the most complex moveset of any of the characters in the game. She has a lot of things that only she can do. First of all, she has this little hop that she can do, which essentially functions as her equivalent to a spin dash. It doesn't launch you off with a ton of speed or anything, but it can be used to essentially skip the early parts of her startup when she's moving particularly slow as she gets up to her default lower movement speed. She can also do an attack out of this where she dives forward face first, and normally I would think that this isn't actually very useful, but I did find some uses for it when fighting certain boss fights, so I guess that means it's a good move. Obviously, Amy has her hammer as her primary method of attack, and just like in Sonic Adventure, when doing it on the ground, it forces you to stand completely still, but if you do it while in the air, then you can move around while doing it, meaning using it in the air is much preferred. She also has her high jump returning from Sonic Adventure, though now you can do it at any time, not just when Amy is moving at full speed. And so naturally this can be used to get Amy up to higher areas that she normally wouldn't be able to get to, as well as being able to combine that with the speed that she does manage to get in order to make pretty big jumps sometimes, because while she can't normally accelerate very quickly, she can still take advantage of momentum and terrain to speed up to the same speed as any of the other characters. Amy also has the ability to do her hammer twirl, kind of also returning from Sonic Adventure, although it's actually somewhat useful in this game, because instead you do it in the air, and the only real good thing about this, You can use it as attack, but it's not really useful for that in my opinion. The actual benefit of this is that it completely cancels Amy's horizontal momentum, allowing you to stop on a dime in the air, which, you know, can be useful in certain situations. However, the big thing that really makes Amy stand out and really fun to play as is the fact that she has a very unique ability unlike anything that's ever been in a Sonic game before, which is that she can hit springs with her hammer, increasing how much power they launch her with. This has so much potential for doing cool stuff with Amy. You can take tons of cool shortcuts and skips, hitting the right springs with her hammer. For example, this part here of Ice Mountain, the other 3 characters need to hit the spring on the right, which gets them high enough to hit the spring on the left to get to the top of this area. However, Amy can just hit the bottom spring with her hammer and she'll fly all the way up to the top. That is pretty cool. Between her high jump and the ability to hit springs with her hammer for extra oomph, Amy really kind of feels like a jumping-focused character, which I think is an interesting direction to take her in. While at first, Amy can just feel like a gimped version of the other characters, when you start to take advantage of the unique things only she can do, you really get to see that she has a lot of fun stuff that she can offer into the gameplay. I really like this moveset for Amy, and I think it works really well. And I also think it is perfectly appropriate for Amy as a character. She is weaker than Sonic, Tails, or Knuckles. She cannot do the things that they can do. She is not as fast as they are. She cannot get to the areas that they normally can. However, using tools to help compensate for her weakness, she is able to kind of find a way to do similar things to what they can do. Not as quickly and not in the same way, but she does still manage to find her own way to make it work. I much prefer something like this in terms of growth for Amy and making her more capable, as opposed to just suddenly making her fast and strong like what ends up happening to her in some other Sonic games. So in terms of physics, controls, and movesets for your different characters in this game, I think that Sonic Advance is fantastic. I think it does a lot to expand upon the classic gameplay of Sonic in a really good way. So that is one half of the Sonic formula that I think Sonic Advance has done a great job at. But of course, the other important half of what makes a Sonic game is the level design, and thankfully Sonic Advance does a great job there as well. This game follows all of the traditional Sonic level design philosophies to a T, and it executes them very well. In particular, I've noticed this game is very, very heavy on the passive traps. It really punishes the player for just mindlessly holding right a lot. Even someone like me, who is very conscious about the concept of passive traps in Sonic, I was constantly falling for them in this game because it is really trying to get you to stop doing that. So much so that by the time you get to one of the later zones in the game, the level starts off like this. Now you could say that's unfair level design, but I would say that is perfectly fair because the entire game up to this point has been trying so hard to teach me to stop doing things like that, yet this far into the game and I'm still doing it, and I deserve to get punished for that. I totally deserve that death there. They are pretty relentless with their punishment of passivity in Sonic Advance, and honestly, it's something that I can kind of approve of. One thing that I think is probably worth mentioning is that a lot of times the Sonic Advance games get criticized for their prominent use of bottomless pits. However, personally, I did not really find that to be much of an issue at all while playing through Sonic Advance. I only fell into like 3 bottomless pits in my entire time with the game. Maybe this is more of an issue in the later Sonic Advance games, I'll keep an eye out for it, but here I really didn't find it was that much of an issue, though maybe that's because I don't often find myself at the bottom of the level. I'm usually at the middle or upper tiers of Sonic levels. It's very rare that I find myself, even on a first playthrough, getting sent all the way down to the bottom, which if you watch new players play Sonic for the first time, they are almost always at the very bottom of every single level in the game. And so when you're at the bottom, it seems like the game has a lot of bottomless pits, but that's only because you've already used up all of your chances the game gives you to make mistakes. Normally in Sonic, you have a safety net that if you screw up a platforming sequence, you'll get knocked down to a lower path, but if you've already hit the bottom, there's no lower to go, and so at that point, if you mess up, the game kills you. So I don't really think there's that much of a problem with having a decent number of bottomless pits at the bottom of a Sonic level, but again, this is just a problem that did not affect me in my time with Sonic Advance. That doesn't necessarily mean that the problem isn't there. But beyond that issue that may or may not exist, I think that Sonic Advance has really good level design, and I should get in here before people start complaining about the dash pads in the game, because yes, Sonic Advance does have some fairly prominent use of dash pads, and to a certain sect of classic Sonic fans, that is like the greatest sin you can ever commit in the entire universe. But in the case of Sonic Advance, I really don't think it's that much of a problem. In my first Sonic Adventure video, I talked about dash pads and how I think there are some applications of them that are perfectly fine. And really, if you think about it, dash pads are functionally very similar to horizontal springs. It's just the only difference is you can trigger them just by stepping on them, rather than having to contact the spring face. So really, there is nothing inherently wrong with dash pads in the context of classic Sonic. It's all just about how they're implemented, and I don't think Sonic Advance uses them improperly at all. It does not overly automate the game or anything like that. The game still has plenty of opportunities for the player to use momentum and physics to get through the game. Really, dash pads in this game are primarily used to get you through set pieces quickly, and as an aid to help out Amy because she does not have the speed needed to clear certain things. And in fact, there was one example I found where the game uses a dash pad against you, where you have this slope here, and if you don't manage to make it up, then oh hey look, there's that dash pad there, I'll just use that. But nope, this dash pad actually sends you down onto a lower path. It's like the game is telling you, hey bro, why are you relying on dash pads so much? This game's not going to do everything for you. You should have just used the spin dash to get up that slope. Come on now, play the game for yourself, why don't ya? That is a very creative and unique use of a dash pad that I have never seen before in a Sonic game. So I think this game's use of dash pads is perfectly fine. And if I were to compare the level design to another Sonic game, it feels very similar to the level design of Sonic 2 to me, which is both a good and bad thing in my opinion, because while the level design of Sonic 2 is really good, it also means that Sonic Advance doesn't really take advantage of alternate paths specifically built for different characters like Sonic 3 did. All the characters just play through the same levels without any specific areas designed particularly for their abilities, which is a bit of a missed opportunity in my opinion, but I guess if they wanted to make something very similar to Sonic 2, it makes sense not to accommodate for that kind of thing, because in general I find that Sonic Advance is very similar to Sonic 2 in many ways. Kind of similar to how Sonic Pocket Adventure is a Sonic game that is inspired by all the classic Sonic games, but in particular Sonic 2, I feel that this game is very much kind of like a do-over of Sonic Pocket Adventure by the same team, though with a bit more originality here this time. Because if you look at the structure of the game, it's just like Sonic 2. You got 2 acts per zone with a boss fight at the end of the second act. But also, the zones themselves, and specifically the way that some of them are paced out, is also very similar to Sonic 2. You start out with your Green Hill-esque zone, though in this case it's more of a beachy-themed level, which this game also takes a decent amount of its inspiration from Sonic Adventure at the same time. As I said, Amy's moveset is very inspired by how she played in Sonic Adventure, and the shield system from Sonic Adventure returns, where you only have the normal shield and the electric shield, and it does not grant Sonic a double jump like it did in Sonic 3. But anyway, yeah, first zone is kind of a Green Hill analog, similar to Emerald Hill, and then the second zone, while not chemical plant, is a factory-type level, so a similar idea of, you know, an Eggman base where he is manufacturing things. And then the third zone of the game is a casino-themed level, though this time in this game it's also kind of mixed with Carnival Night a little bit. And I would argue that is a pretty striking similarity to the zones and pacing of Sonic 2. Not that everything is directly taken from Sonic 2, like I said, the game does take inspiration from all the classic Sonic games and Sonic Adventure to a degree, because you also have an ice-themed zone similar to Ice Cap, and you also have Angel Island zone, which feels very similar to like Lost World / Sky Sanctuary a little bit. But also another thing that kind of makes this feel like a do-over of Sonic Pocket Adventure is the boss fight with Mecha Knuckles at the end of Angel Island, because, you know, in Sonic Pocket Adventure there was that boss fight with Knuckles that just is there for no reason whatsoever. And so this is a way to like, hey, we have a boss fight with Knuckles, but it's actually explained this time with an actual reason of why you're fighting quote-unquote Knuckles. Speaking of boss similarities, the first boss with Eggman in the game is him using a hammer, which is just like what's in Sonic Pocket Adventure. Which, by the way, the bosses in the game are standard Sonic fare, nothing more to say than that, moving on. But the biggest thing that really smacks of Sonic 2 to me is that there is a level that is very, very similar to Wing Fortress. However, in this game, it is instead a rocket that is taking off, and you are climbing up to the top of the rocket as it ejects different parts of it as it gets higher and higher into the atmosphere, which is a really cool theme for a level, and I really like how it's done here. But just the general feel of the level is very similar to Wing Fortress, with a little bit of flying battery, I would say, mixed in there as well. Though I would say that this level is much, much better than Wing Fortress is. This level is very, very long. It is a gauntlet that you have to go through, and it's just a really cool and very well-designed level. It is very different than your typical Sonic level because your objective is to get to the top of the level, and so the level design is very different. However, it still manages to follow traditional Sonic level design philosophies, and because of its vertical design, this is the only level in the game where you can really take very interesting shortcuts using Tails, Knuckles, and Amy's different abilities. It is really cool. Though after this level, you do have something that to me smacks very much of Death Egg from Sonic 3, right down to having the inverting gravity. So like I said, not everything here is one-to-one Sonic 2, but there's definitely a lot of Sonic 2 inspiration in this game, which is not surprising considering that a lot of these devs' last game was literally just Sonic 2, but on the Neo Geo Pocket Color. Now, of course, with this being a classic-style Sonic game, that obviously means we're going to have special stages to collect the Chaos Emeralds. Great, I love special stages. Can't wait to see how they work in this game. Well, to be fair, credit where it's due, I think that the special stages in Sonic Advance have my favorite version of how to access special stages that have been in any of the Sonic games thus far, because this time around the way it works is you find these special springs hidden around the game, and these take you to the special stages, which is kind of similar to the big rings you would find in Sonic 3, but there is a big difference here in that there are only 7 of these springs hidden throughout the game, so you have to find all 7 of these to get the 7 Chaos Emeralds. If I was actually to compare this to something, I would say that finding these springs is most similar to finding the robot generators in Sonic CD, though I think this is much more fun than looking for those ever was, because it's not that difficult to suss out where these springs are likely to be. Usually they tend to be at the tops of the level in particularly difficult and out-of-the-way platforming sequences that oftentimes seem kind of pointless if you look at it from the perspective of completing the level. You look at these things and you're like, that's going left, that's gonna take me away from the direction I need to go to complete the level. Why on earth would I go this way? Probably because this is where the hidden spring is. So unlike Sonic CD, which just puts the robot generators anywhere, I think this game does a much better job of hiding these springs. One issue that I do have, though, is that there is no hard rule on where these are hidden. So if you don't already have an idea of where they might be, you don't exactly know where to look. It's not like there's one hidden in every zone, always in Act 2 or anything like that. They're sometimes in Act 1, sometimes in Act 2, and in one case there is a spring hidden in both acts of one zone. Now, as far as the special stages themselves, they are, again, fairly similar to the Sonic 2 special stages, though with their own unique twist, just kind of like the entire game is. The way they work here is that you are falling down a tube, and you have to navigate around to collect SpaghettiOs, and similar to Sonic 2, you have to hit certain thresholds in order to keep going and eventually collect enough to get the Chaos Emerald. The main difference here between the Sonic 2 special stages is that you're no longer on a half pipe moving left and right, you are now able to move fully in any direction as you're falling down the tube. But in terms of how these actually play and feel in our design, they are very similar to the Sonic 2 special stages, though they are less bullshit than those are. You have much better visibility, much easier to see what's coming along, and it's not too bad. I certainly had a much easier time getting the Chaos Emeralds in this game than I did in Sonic 2. I still don't think these special stages are particularly good or fun, but at least they're pretty inoffensive this time around. Sadly, collecting all the Chaos Emeralds does not unlock you Super Sonic in normal gameplay. I don't really understand why. Like, that became a thing in the 3D games for whatever reason, and for some reason has translated into the 2D games, and it's just, well, why? People like getting Supersonic, what's the point of this? But of course it does have the Supersonic Final Boss minigame, as is tradition with Sonic games at this point, and as per usual, it's pretty whatever. And Sonic Heroes style, it's not enough to just collect the Chaos Emeralds in this game. In order to get access to this final boss, you also have to complete the game with all 4 of the characters. Pretty needless in this case, but at least this game isn't very long, and it is very fun and very replayable, so it's not that much of a problem. And of course, finally, finally, as always, we need to talk about the time attack experience of Sonic Advance, which I think kicks major ass. Similar to Pocket Adventure, this game actually has a built-in time attack mode, which I always love to see in a Sonic game. Sadly, this time it does not have a ranking system for you to aim for, but personally, I don't need extrinsic motivation to go for time attack in Sonic. I do it primarily because I find it fun. And with the quality level design of Sonic Advance and the expansion on the classic gameplay with the new moves and playable character, I think Sonic Advance is a great game for time attack. It is super duper good, just the kind of stuff that I want in a Sonic game. And with these extra mechanics added to the gameplay, I found it a lot more difficult to get really good times in this game than I did in the previous Sonic games, which I say as a good thing. The skill ceiling here is definitely higher than it was in the classic Sonic games, and I think that is definitely to the game's benefit. You have a lot more room to grow if you want to improve your times here than you did in the classic games. I find the addition of these new gameplay elements and mechanics and abilities work wonderfully well, because you can still play the game exactly like the classic games and never take advantage of these abilities, and the game is still really fun. But if you want to get better at the game, then you have these extra things to incorporate into your gameplay to add more variety to how you play. It just adds additional layers of depth to the gameplay that was already so good. I also found that the level design is just a lot stricter than it is in the previous games as well, in terms of trying to clear these platforming sequences as quickly as possible. That is a challenge a lot of the time in a way that it's not really been in the previous 2D Sonic games. I don't know, maybe that's just me being more strict on myself with this game than I was the classic games. I'm not exactly sure. But that's kind of the fun of time attacking for me. I think it's one of the things that makes me really like playing these games in that way, is that Sonic games inherently aren't really that difficult of games most of the time, and as someone that likes difficult games, time attack offers me the opportunity to make a Sonic game into something really challenging, and the difficulty is dynamic. I can make the game as difficult as I want, simply based on how strict I want to be on myself in terms of what I feel satisfied with getting a good time. I guess this is probably why speedrunning is so popular, because it's something that allows you to push your skills as much as you want to. For me, when it comes to Sonic, my desires for getting good runs is highly variable. Sometimes I will want like a nearly perfect run where I nail everything to the best of my ability, but other times I'm not really feeling it as much and I get much more lax with my requirements, but I still have a lot of fun regardless of how strict I'm being on myself. That sort of dynamism is something that I think makes time attack as a type of gameplay really engaging and fun, at least for people that are interested in that kind of thing. I know most people don't really care about it, but it is something that I personally really like, not just in Sonic games, but in many different games out there, and Sonic is the series that ignited my love for this type of gameplay in games, and that is exactly what they are trying to do. And by the way, while she will never get times as fast as what the other characters are capable of, time attacking with Amy is also fun because of how unique and different her gameplay is compared to the other characters, especially considering that sometimes she cannot take the fastest paths, so you are forced onto slower routes, making me have to route out good paths through parts of the level that I would otherwise not really pay that much attention to. And I had a ton of fun time attacking this game as all 4 characters. To be honest, so far, this is one of the most fun time attack experiences I've had in the Sonic series out of all the games I've covered. A lot of people like to say that Sonic Advance is the true Sonic 4, and while I like that idea, I don't necessarily agree with that, because if we look at the trend of the original Sonic games from 1 to 2 to 3, they were always getting bigger and adding more to Sonic, and Sonic Advance doesn't really do that. In some ways it does. It adds a 4th playable character and new moves to incorporate into the gameplay, but at the same time, it has less zones, less levels. The game is not as long as Sonic 3 and Knuckles is. It's only about the length of like Sonic 1 or 2, about 45 minutes to an hour for a vanilla playthrough. In many ways, the game has less than the previous Sonic game. It has less boss fights, less special stages. It took away the elemental shields and what they added to the gameplay. So this really, to me, doesn't feel like the sequel to Sonic 3 and Knuckles. What this feels like to me is just an attempt to make a solid Sonic game and just aim for what a Sonic game is and execute that well. And in that sense, I think that Sonic Advance definitely succeeds at that, particularly in the way that it is an homage to Sonic 2. Another thing that makes it very similar to that game is look at the ending of the game. You have the normal ending where Sonic is falling from the destroyed Eggman space station and Tails catches him in the tornado, or you have the true ending where everyone celebrates Sonic's victory, but they don't know what happened to Sonic, and Tails goes looking for him, where he eventually runs into Super Sonic flying around in the sky, just like Sonic 2. So really, this is not the sequel to Sonic 3 and Knuckles. This is not Sonic 4. This is a very loving and well-made homage to Sonic 2 that also incorporates some elements from later games. I would say this is very similar to Sonic Heroes in that it comes off to me as a quintessential example of a Sonic game for someone that it is their first time playing a Sonic game. If you don't know what Sonic is and you've never played Sonic before, you can play Sonic Advance and you will know everything about what this series is about. You know, there are a lot of people that got out of Sonic after Sonic 3 and Knuckles. You know, the people that are classic purists, as they often get called in the Sonic community. People that don't like Sonic Adventure. People that think that Sonic went downhill after it went 3D and all that. These days, the Sonic community is very quick to criticize people like this for only liking classic Sonic and only wanting the series to be one specific thing. But you gotta think about it from these people's perspectives. There is a reason that they stopped liking Sonic over time. And the reason is because the Sonic series in the original games was one thing. And once you get to Sonic Adventure, a lot of those things go away and are replaced with something different. The gameplay changes a lot, the game design changes a lot, the series changes many of the things that it tries to do as a game. It gets more story-focused and incorporates a lot of things that don't really fit what the series was originally. It also doesn't help that those games are extremely flawed and very divisive on whether or not they're even good to begin with, because they do have a lot of problems. And I think it is totally fair for someone to like those things about Sonic and not like when those things are removed. As I said in my first Sonic Adventure video, Sonic Adventure, in my opinion, is an entirely different type of Sonic game, separate from classic Sonic games, and I don't think there's a problem with someone being a fan of one particular style of Sonic game because they like the specific things that it does, and when those things are not there, they are not really interested. It's entirely possible that the different things that the adventure-style Sonic games do just do not interest that person. Personally, I am someone that likes both the classic and the adventure style, but my preference is for the classic style games, and the unfortunate thing about all these people that say, like, you know, Sonic 3 and Knuckles was the last good Sonic game until Sonic Mania, is that I have to assume most of these people say these things out of ignorance because they do not know that these handheld Sonic games continued the spirit of the original Sonic series. You have gameplay that is very faithful to how the original Sonic games played while expanding on them in what I think are very good ways. You have a general visual design that is not too far away from what the original Sonic games looked like, and you have a much more arcadey game focus with not that much story at all to worry about in these games. The only thing that separates this from the classic Sonic games is the character designs. Swap these out for the classic characters, and you could easily call this a classic Sonic game, and in fact, I already do. It's unfortunate that these games were so overshadowed by the console games because, you know, they were just the smaller side games on a handheld system, so they're not really the focus of the series, and so a lot of people don't even know that there is quality, faithful, classic Sonic gameplay waiting right here in Sonic Advance. Though one thing that I have heard from people that are aware of Sonic Advance is that Yeah, the Sonic Advance games are okay, but they're definitely not as good as the classic Sonic games on Genesis, and personally, I do not agree with this sentiment whatsoever. I think that is entirely a nostalgia bias of people putting the original Genesis Sonic games on this unfair pedestal just because they are the original classic Sonic games before the series quote-unquote got bad. But I want to fight against that sentiment because that is a load of horseshit in my opinion. I think Sonic Advance absolutely deserves to stand shoulder to shoulder with the likes of Sonic 2 and 3 and Knuckles. This game is not just okay, this game is great. One last thing I want to talk about before I go is that this game has literally no story, so I'm not going to be doing a story video for it, but there is one thing here that I do want to talk about, which is a massive missed opportunity to fix a continuity error that the series has been suffering from since the events of Sonic Adventure 2, that being the destroyed moon, because this was the first Sonic game released after Sonic Adventure 2, and immediately this game just does not give a fuck. Not only do we see the moon, but the final boss fight of the game takes place on the moon, and you're just shown right there that it's perfectly intact, and the moon turned, whatever. That's stupid. And this game has such an opportunity to have a better explanation of how the moon ends up getting fixed. Because all you needed to do was that when we see the rocket flying toward the moon, we see that it still has the hole in it from Sonic Adventure 2. And then once you beat the final boss, all you need is a shot of the moon and we still see the hole there, and then just a flash of light and the moon is restored to normal, and bada bing bada boom, Sonic used the power of the Chaos Emeralds to fix the moon. Problem solved. Not only would that fix the continuity error in the future games, but it would also give this game a notable contribution to the Sonic continuity. It would have been so easy, and they just didn't do it, which is part of the reason why I say they just don't give a fuck about these kinds of things. Although, if you want to get really nerdy about it, the tornado we see in the game is the Tornado 1, which gets destroyed during the events of Sonic Adventure, so maybe Sonic Advance takes place before SA1 and that's why the moon is intact? I guess that's a possibility, but all you would have had to do was swap this out for the Tornado 2 and that would have been fixed. And really, I think they probably didn't think about it that much. They probably just used the Tornado 1 because they wanted to homage Sonic 2. So there you go, there's my micro The Story of Sonic Advance for you inside the Sonic Was Always Good video, a 2-for-1, how about that? Thank you for watching, hope you enjoyed, I'll see you next time.